The rain hit the windshield so hard, I could barely see the porch light of my own house. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not from the cold, but from what I had just watched happen 20 minutes earlier. My 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was standing outside our front door in her socks, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest, tears streaming down her face, while my husband stood in the doorway behind her, not comforting her, not pulling her back inside but looking over his shoulder at his mother, waiting for her nod of approval. "Daddy, please," Lily had cried. "I didn't mean to spill it. I said sorry." And my husband, the man I had trusted with my whole heart for 9 years, said the words that shattered something inside me forever. "Just wait outside for a minute, sweetheart. Grandma needs space to calm down." Space. From a 7-year-old. In the rain. I had been at the store when it happened. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my daughter was soaked, shivering, and alone on the porch. While inside the house, my husband was pouring his mother a fresh cup of tea like nothing was wrong. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't cry in front of him. I simply picked up my daughter, wrapped her in a towel, and made a decision that would change everything by morning. But to understand how everything fell apart that night, I have to take you back to where it all began. My name is Sarah Whitfield, and 3 years ago, my life looked nothing like it does today. I was 34 years old, married to a good man named Daniel, and raising the sweetest little girl anyone could ask for. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, in a modest 3-bedroom house with a crooked mailbox that Daniel always promised to fix and never did. Daniel worked as a project manager at a logistics company. I taught 3rd grade at the elementary school 2 miles from our house. Our life wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. Sunday pancakes, movie nights, Lily's laughter echoing through the hallway. Daniel and I had been high school sweethearts. He was steady, dependable, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries, and always let me have the last slice of pizza. I fell in love with his loyalty. I just never imagined that loyalty would one day be pointed entirely at someone else. His mother, Eleanor Whitfield, was Daniel's mother, and from the very beginning of our marriage, she made it clear that no woman would ever be good enough for her only son. I tried for years to earn her approval. I brought her flowers on her birthday. I invited her to every holiday. I bit my tongue more times than I could count. When Lily was born, I hoped things would soften. Grandchildren have a way of melting even the coldest hearts. But Eleanor's love for Lily always came with conditions. Quiet, cutting, judgments disguised as advice. "She's too loud for a girl her age. You're raising her too soft, Sarah." In my day, children didn't speak unless spoken to. Daniel would just laugh it off. "That's just how mom is," he'd say. "She means well." I wanted to believe him. I really did. The real trouble started 2 years ago, when Eleanor's husband passed away suddenly from a heart attack. Daniel, being the devoted son he was, insisted his mother move in with us, just for a little while, until she got back on her feet. That little while never ended. At first, I welcomed her with open arms. Grief does strange things to people, and I told myself she needed time, patience, grace. I made her tea every morning. I gave up my reading nook so she could have a quiet space. I told Lily to be extra kind to Grandma because Grandma was sad. But as the months passed, Eleanor's grief slowly transformed into control, and Daniel, desperate to ease his mother's pain, began letting her run our household as if it were her own. Meals had to be cooked her way. The living room had to be arranged her way. And slowly, painfully, my daughter became the unspoken target of Eleanor's quiet resentment. It started small, a comment about Lily's drawings being a waste of paper, a sharp scolding when Lily laughed too loudly during cartoons, a refusal to let Lily sit beside her at dinner because she chewed too loud. I brought it up to Daniel one night in our bedroom, my voice trembling with restraint. "Daniel, your mother is being cold to Lily. I don't think it's an accident anymore." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She just lost her husband, Sarah. She's grieving. Can you please be a little more patient?" I have been patient for 1.5 years. "She's my mother," he said, as if that single sentence erased every valid concern I had. I let it go that night, but deep down, something in me had already started keeping score. A few weeks later, Lily came home from school beaming, clutching a certificate for Student of the Month. She ran straight to Eleanor, who was sitting in the living room. "Grandma, look, I got an award." Eleanor barely glanced up from her crossword puzzle. That's nice, dear. Don't shout indoors. Lily's smile faded instantly. She turned to me instead, and I hugged her tightly, praising her the way any grandmother should have. That night, I overheard Eleanor talking to Daniel in the kitchen. You spoil that girl too much, Daniel. She needs discipline, not constant praise. She's 7, Mom. She just wants attention. And you give her too much of it. You never gave me this much attention as a child, and look how well you turned out. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding. I wanted Daniel to defend his daughter the way he always defended his mother. Instead, he simply said, I'll talk to Sarah about toning it down. Toning it down. As if celebrating our daughter's achievements was somehow the problem. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just tension between two strong personalities. This was a slow, quiet erosion of my daughter's confidence, and my husband was standing by, watching it happen, too afraid to upset his mother. Weeks turned into months, and the incidents grew sharper. Eleanor began comparing Lily to Daniel's cousin's children, saying things like, Emily already reads chapter books. Lily's still on picture books. That's concerning. Lily, being the observant child she was, began asking me quiet, heartbreaking questions. Mommy, does Grandma not like me? I didn't know how to answer that, without lying to protect her heart or telling the truth and breaking it further. Grandma loves you, I told her. She just has a different way of showing it. But even as I said the words, I didn't believe them myself. One Saturday morning, everything nearly boiled over. Lily had made pancakes with me, proudly decorating hers with chocolate chips shaped like a smiley face. She ran to show Eleanor before breakfast. Grandma, look what I made. Eleanor wrinkled her nose. Chocolate for breakfast? No wonder she's getting chubby. The words hit the room like a slap. Lily's smile crumbled instantly, her small hands dropping to her sides. I felt my blood turn to fire. Eleanor, I said, my voice sharp, that is not okay to say to a child. I'm simply being honest, Sarah. Someone has to be. Daniel walked in at that exact moment, sensing the tension immediately. What's going on? Before I could speak, Eleanor answered first, her voice syrupy, sweet. Nothing, dear. Your wife is just overreacting again. And once again, Daniel chose the easier path. Sarah, can we not do this in front of Lily? She's the one being hurt, Daniel. Don't you see that? He didn't answer. He just guided his mother into the kitchen, leaving me standing there with our daughter, who quietly asked, Am I fat, Mommy? That question haunted me for days. I began documenting everything after that. Every comment, every dismissive glance, every moment Daniel chose silence over his daughter's dignity. I wasn't building a case out of spite. I was protecting evidence of a pattern I feared was only getting worse. And it did get worse. One evening, Lily accidentally knocked over Eleanor's antique teacup while reaching for a napkin. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Lily froze, eyes wide with fear. I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't mean to. Eleanor's face turned red with fury. That cup was from your grandfather. Do you understand what you just did? I'm sorry, Lily whispered again, tears welling up. Sorry doesn't fix priceless things, young lady. I rushed in from the kitchen. Eleanor, it was an accident. She's 7. She needs to learn responsibility, Sarah, or she'll grow up entitled and careless. Daniel came in, took one look at the broken cup, and instead of comforting his terrified daughter, walked straight to his mother. Mom, are you okay? Did it cut you? Lily stood there, forgotten, tears silently sliding down her cheeks, while her father checked on his mother's feelings instead of his daughter's heart. I picked Lily up, held her close, and carried her to her room without saying a word to either of them. That night, I lay awake beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. You checked on your mother before you checked on our daughter, I finally said. The cup could have cut her, Sarah. Lily was crying, Daniel. Our daughter was standing right there, terrified, and you didn't even look at her. He was quiet for a long moment. I didn't think about it that way. That's exactly the problem. You never do. He didn't respond. He just rolled over and went to sleep, while I stayed awake, feeling more alone in my marriage than I ever had before. The tension in our house became a slow-burning fire, and every week added new fuel. Eleanor began excluding Lily from small things, dessert portions, bedtime stories, even simple conversations at the dinner table. And each time I confronted Daniel, his response became more predictable, more scripted. She's my mother, Sarah. She's grieving. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. I started to feel like a stranger in my own marriage, fighting a battle no one else could see, while my daughter's light slowly dimmed under the weight of constant, quiet rejection. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday evening in early spring. I had gone to the grocery store to pick up ingredients for Lily's school bake sale the next day. I remember feeling almost hopeful that evening, humming along to the radio, thinking maybe things were finally settling down. When I pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later, my heart stopped. Lily was standing on the front porch, alone, in the pouring rain, wearing only her socks and a thin t-shirt, clutching her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Her small body trembled with cold, her lips slightly blue, tears mixing with the rain on her face. I threw the car door open and ran to her. Lily, baby, what happened? Why are you outside? Between sobs, she managed to say, I spilled Grandma's tea on the carpet. Daddy said I had to wait outside until Grandma calms down. I looked up at the front door, and there was Daniel, standing just inside the doorway, dry, comfortable, watching his mother settle back into her armchair. Daniel, I screamed. Our daughter is standing outside in the rain. He looked genuinely startled, as if he had somehow forgotten she was still out there. I told her it would just be a few minutes, Sarah. I was going to bring her in. A few minutes? She's soaked. She's shaking. Eleanor's voice rang out from the living room, calm and unbothered. The girl needs to learn that actions have consequences. Something inside me snapped completely. I carried Lily inside, wrapped her in the warmest blanket I could find, and held her shivering body against mine as her sobs slowly softened into exhausted whimpers. I didn't say another word to Daniel or Eleanor that night. I simply put my daughter to bed, sang her favorite lullaby until she fell asleep, and sat beside her for hours, watching her chest rise and fall. Around midnight, Daniel knocked softly on her bedroom door. Sarah, can we talk? I stepped into the hallway, closing Lily's door gently behind me. There is nothing to talk about, Daniel. You left our daughter outside, in the rain, because your mother was upset about spilled tea. I know it looks bad, but it doesn't look bad, Daniel. It is bad. You chose her comfort over our daughter's safety. Again. Sarah, please. You're being. If you say I'm overreacting one more time, I said, my voice shaking with restrained fury, I don't know what I'll do. He fell silent, his eyes finally showing something close to fear, not for himself, but perhaps for the first time, a flicker of understanding of what he had actually done. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the armchair beside Lily's bed, replaying every moment of the last 2 years, every excuse I had accepted, every red flag I had ignored for the sake of keeping peace in our home. By sunrise, I had made my decision. I called my sister, Rachel, who lived 20 minutes away, and asked if Lily and I could stay with her for a few days. Rachel didn't ask a single question. She simply said, come now. I packed a small bag for Lily and myself while Daniel slept, unaware that our world was about to shift entirely. Before I left, I wrote him a letter, because I needed him to read my words without interrupting, without deflecting, without making excuses. The letter said, Daniel, I have loved you for 18 years, but last night, you proved that your mother's comfort matters more to you than our daughter's safety. I am not leaving to punish you. I am leaving to protect Lily, and honestly, to protect myself. If you truly love us, you know what you need to do. But I will not raise our daughter in a home where she feels smaller every single day. I placed the letter on the kitchen counter, gently woke Lily, and drove to my sister's house as the sun rose over Columbus. The next few days were quiet, healing days. Lily slowly returned to herself at Rachel's house, laughing again, drawing again, sleeping peacefully through the night without waking up, crying. Watching her heal reminded me exactly why I had made the decision I did. Daniel called me constantly, but I let most calls go to voicemail. I needed space to think clearly, without his voice pulling me back into old patterns of forgiveness before real change had even begun. On the third day, Daniel showed up at Rachel's doorstep, his eyes red and swollen, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. Sarah, please, can we talk? Just 5 minutes. Rachel stood protectively beside me, but I nodded. 5 minutes. We sat on the porch steps, The same kind of steps where our daughter had once shivered alone in the rain. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Daniel began, his voice trembling. I talked to my therapist yesterday. You have a therapist? I asked, surprised. I started seeing one 2 days ago, after you left. I realized I needed to understand why I kept choosing my mother over my own family. I stayed silent, letting him continue. My whole life, my mother made me feel like love was conditional, like I had to earn her approval by putting her needs first, always. I think I've been terrified of losing her love the same way. I lost my father's attention growing up, and somewhere along the way, I let that fear control how I treated you and Lily. His words surprised me, but they didn't excuse what had happened. That doesn't erase what you did, Daniel. Our daughter was outside, in the rain, because you were more afraid of upsetting your mother than protecting your own child. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I know, and I hate myself for it. I keep replaying her face, standing there in the rain, and I don't recognize the father I've become. Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw real, raw vulnerability in him. Not excuses, not deflection, but genuine, painful self-awareness. What do you want, Daniel? I asked quietly, because I need more than words this time. I want to fix this, he said. I want to be the father Lily deserves. I want to be the husband you deserve. But I know I can't do that while my mother is still living in our house, controlling everything. That single sentence carried more weight than any apology he had ever given me before. What are you saying? I asked carefully. I'm saying I already told her this morning. She needs to move out. I found her a small apartment near her sister's place in Dayton. I'm helping her move this weekend. I stared at him, stunned. You told her that? I did. And Sarah, she wasn't happy. She said, some things I won't repeat. But for the first time in my life, I told my mother no. I told her that Lily's safety and happiness will always come first in my home, no matter how she feels about it. I felt something shift inside me. Not complete forgiveness. Not yet, but a small, cautious flicker of hope. That's a good first step, Daniel, but it doesn't undo the last 2 years. I know, he said. I'm not asking you to forget any of it. I'm asking for a chance to prove, through actions, not words, that I understand how badly I failed both of you. I sat quietly for a long moment, watching the morning sunlight filter through Rachel's oak tree, thinking about everything Lily deserved: a home filled with warmth, not fear, a father who protected her instinctively, not one who needed a crisis to wake him up. I need time, Daniel, I finally said. And Lily needs to feel completely safe before we even consider coming home. Take all the time you need, he said. I'll wait. I'll prove it every single day if I have to. Over the following 2 weeks, Daniel did exactly that. He called every evening, not to plead or manipulate, but simply to talk to Lily, to read her bedtime stories over video calls, to ask her about her day without ever mentioning his mother. He sent me updates about his therapy sessions, not as proof for my approval, but because he genuinely wanted to understand himself better. He helped Eleanor move into her new apartment, setting firm boundaries about visits, respectful, but no longer unlimited access to control our household. Slowly, cautiously, I began to see real change, not performative change, but the quiet, consistent kind that comes from someone truly reckoning with their mistakes. 3 weeks after that rainy night, I agreed to bring Lily home, but with new rules firmly in place. Eleanor would visit only with advance notice, and only for supervised, limited visits. Daniel agreed immediately, without hesitation, without his old excuses. The first evening we returned home, Daniel had transformed Lily's room into a small celebration. Fresh flowers, her favorite stuffed animals arranged neatly, and a handwritten letter waiting on her pillow. Dear Lily, it read, I'm so sorry I let you feel small, when you should have always felt like the most important person in this house. I promise, from now on, I will always choose you first. Love, Daddy. Lily read the letter slowly, her small lips moving silently, and then looked up at her father with cautious, hopeful eyes. Do you promise, Daddy? Daniel knelt down to her level, tears in his eyes. I promise, sweetheart, forever. That night, for the first time in months, our home felt like it was healing. But real change isn't just about words in a letter. It's about consistent actions over time, proving trust rebuilt slowly, brick by brick. In the months that followed, Daniel kept every promise he made. He attended Lily's school events without fail, cheering loudest at her spelling bee, standing proudly at her dance recital, celebrating every small achievement the way a father should. When Eleanor visited, brief and supervised, Daniel remained firm, gently but clearly redirecting any hint of the old behavior. One afternoon, months later, Eleanor made a passing comment about Lily's drawing being childish. Daniel immediately, calmly, but firmly responded, "Mom, Lily's creativity is something we celebrate in this house. If you can't do that, visits will need to end early." Eleanor fell silent, stunned by her son's newfound resolve. And for the first time, Lily looked at her father with pure, unwavering trust. Our marriage slowly rebuilt itself, not through grand gestures, but through Daniel's daily commitment to being present, protective, and emotionally available, qualities that had been missing for far too long. A year later, on a warm Sunday afternoon, I watched Daniel push Lily on the tire swing in our backyard, her laughter ringing through the air, bright and unguarded, the way it used to before Eleanor moved in. "Higher, Daddy, higher." Daniel laughed, pushing gently. "You got it, baby girl." Watching them together, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, genuine peace. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel and I sat on our porch, the same porch where Lily had once stood shivering in the rain. He reached for my hand. "Thank you for not giving up on us," he said quietly, "even when I gave you every reason to." "I didn't do it for us, Daniel," I said honestly. "I did it for Lily, but I'm glad it became about us too." He nodded, understanding completely. Looking back now, I realized that night, in the rain, wasn't the end of our family. It was the painful beginning of its healing. Sometimes it takes losing everything, even briefly, to truly understand what matters most. If you're a parent who has ever felt torn between keeping peace with extended family and protecting your own child's heart, please remember this. Peace built on a child's pain is never real peace at all. Real strength isn't avoiding conflict, it's standing firmly for the people who depend on you most, even when it's the hardest choice you'll ever make. Because in the end, love isn't proven through comfortable silence. It's proven through the courage to choose your child every single time, no matter the cost.